outside of the fan fest wearing Fever merch and Caitlin Clark jerseys and things like that. What does it mean to you to know that your team has fans, all the way out here on the East Coast?
No, I mean, it's huge, and that's the thing about generational.
The WNBA haven't been seeing numbers like that, and they've been here since 1997.
There are literally hundreds of fans, and you can see all the way down the street. You can see this going all the way down the street, lads.
Once again, Caitlin Clark continuing to break records non-stop. What does she do now?
If Caitlin Clark started her own league and just quit the WNBA, it would be more viewed than WNBA. Like that's a fact.
They started showing up before sunrise. Kids clutching orange jerseys, parents balancing coffees, college students waving homemade signs that read, "I drove 300 miles for a selfie." By mid-morning, the line snaked down Causeway Street, wrapped the corner, and kept going until it spilled into Boston traffic. TD Garden, where Larry Bird once ruled, and the parquet floor still smells like championships, hadn't seen a women's basketball frenzy like this, ever. One security guard shook his head at the sea of Indiana Fever colors and muttered, "We've hosted the finals here, but I've never seen this."
How important, Caitlin Clark is to the league. Not a single Sun jersey in sight. Like, what Sun jersey do they own?
Caitlin Clark continues to crush the viewership department and bring in those big ratings. This is from ESPN PR. This past Sunday, ABC aired another of its most watched WNBA games ever with the Indiana Fever's win over the Dallas Wings. It averaged 2.1 million viewers and peaked at 2.5 million viewers. WNBA on ESPN is up 7% from last season, man.
Every game is a home game. The league owes her money at this point.
Welcome to the new normal, where every court Caitlin Clark steps on instantly becomes her home court, and an entire sport rearranges itself around a single 23-year-old from Iowa. You've heard leagues brag about record viewership before, but Clark didn't just nudge the numbers, she detonated them. In 2024 alone, 24 WNBA broadcasts cracked 1 million viewers. 21 of those games had one thing in common: Clark on the floor. When the Fever met the Wings on ABC this July, 2.1 million people tuned in, peaking at 2.5 million. Good for the network's fourth most watched WNBA game ever. Skeptics called it a one-off. Clark answered a month later, closing her rookie season against the defending champion Aces with cable's most viewed WNBA telecast in history. Every time the programmers rolled fresh tape, the bar moved higher until she was competing only with her own highlights. Traditional sports execs like to credit rising tides, but deep down, they know lightning when it strikes.
Every time the girl is on national TV, she's shattering her own. She's not even shattering viewership records. She can only break her own records at this point. She's already broken everybody else's when it comes to this viewership thing.
69% versus last year's WNBA on ABC regular season average. This season to date, the WNBA across ESPN platforms are up 7% from last season. What's that number when we get rid of the Caitlin Clark games on ABC or ESPN? Because if her games are always better than what they were last season, right? Where does that balance out in terms of the actual growth that the league is seeing that isn't Caitlin Clark related?
Women's basketball, long marooned under 500,000 national viewers, jumped overnight into the same TV neighborhood as Major League Soccer and early round NHL playoffs. Sponsors didn't need a second invitation. They rewrote ad buys, shuffled commercial inventory, and started phoning agents who had never fielded network calls before. Clark's jump shot was echoing louder in boardrooms than it did in arenas, and we were only in Act 1. Transition. But the electricity on screen was just the preview. The real shock came when the ticket scanners lit up.
For the WNBA this year is going to be off the charts. It's going to be really, really good. And the NCAA women's game next year is going to be through the roof, because everybody is going to want to see what these NIL deals, how they work out, how they make out. But right now with the WNBA, everybody is ajar. Everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen.
Rewind 5 seasons, and you'd find ushers begging fans to move down from the rafters. Fast forward to May 2025, and more than 400,000 people had already bought WNBA tickets, an attendance pace unmatched in 26 years, with over half the games selling out outright. It felt like somebody flipped a switch. Longtime arena staff in Phoenix and New York whispered that women's games suddenly reminded them of the early 2000s NBA boom. Jammed concourses, concession lines too long to time, parents shelling out $40 for youth-size replicas that sold out before halftime. Then came Boston. TD Garden, built for Celtics banners and Bruins brawls, doesn't just open its doors for anyone. Yet twice in 2 seasons, the Connecticut Sun rented the fabled building 100 miles from their actual home because they knew Clark would pack it.
Indiana University Columbus calculated that Caitlin Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. One player in a big league responsible for 27% of the economic impact and economic activity.
19,156 tickets vanished. Rows of navy Boston sports hats morphed into a tidal wave of fever orange. The game tipped at 8. By 7, they were waving fans away at the doors. A sellout in a borrowed arena on a Tuesday night. That isn't a trend, it's a cultural event. An economist at Indiana University crunched the receipts and nearly fell off his chair. One rookie accounted for an estimated $36 million in economic impact to Indianapolis alone. Restaurants, hotels, ride shares, merchandise, representing roughly 27% of all WNBA economic activity for 2024.
Back on this, Caitlin Clark will be for the WNBA what Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were for the NBA. If this thing ever becomes as big as some people think it can become, she will be the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. You needed 2 of them to take the NBA to another level. You needed Magic and Larry. She doesn't need anybody.
Think about that. In a league boasting former MVPs, Olympians, and champions, more than a quarter of the cash swirl pointed back to one jump shooting logo launching phenom. It isn't just local eateries cashing in. Nike hurried a signature shoe timeline that normally crawls over multiple seasons. Gatorade signed an endorsement deal rumored, only rumored mind you, to rival contracts handed to first-round NBA picks. Fever jerseys crashed the WNBA online store twice in 1 week. Meanwhile, opposing franchises quietly built promotional calendars around Clark's road dates. Star Power Saturday, Record Breaker Night, Kids Get Free Clark poster giveaway. During media breaks, broadcasters read live copy ads from sponsors that had never purchased a women's basketball spot until her highlight reel started trending on TikTok. Ask anyone who walked into TD Garden for that Connecticut home game which team owned the floor. You'll hear the same response. You'd think the Fever were the hosts. Reporters roamed the concourse searching for a Sun jersey like archaeologists hunting a fossil. They came up empty. It was the same story in Phoenix, Las Vegas, Brooklyn. Fever orange armies drowning out local cheers. When Clark's bus parks outside, the visitors' tunnel feels like a championship parade route. The effect isn't limited to ticket stubs. Veteran players have quietly vented that they feel like supporting actors in their own arenas. One West Coast forward told a podcast, again, just rumor, that she and teammates joke about bringing Sharpies to sign Clark-branded posters because that's what the kids shove under the railing anyway. Some call it motivation, others call it exhausting. Whatever you call it, nobody can deny the flip. Teams with decades of history now fear losing the decibel battle to a second-year point guard in their own building. Here's the statistic that keeps WNBA executives up at night. The first playoff game without Clark last season drew less than half the audience of the Fever finale a week earlier. That's not a dip, that's a cliff. The league's meteoric springboard is tied to a single set of ankles. One rolled foot, one off-season sabbatical, and the ratings graph could boomerang back to the 300,000 plateau overnight. Business analysts call this concentration risk. Sports fans call it the Tiger Woods problem. Golf boomed when Tiger roared, then scrambled when his back gave out. The WNBA's collective bargaining talks already hint at a scramble to pay superstars more, because revenue tied to one person is revenue you absolutely cannot afford to lose. Meanwhile, every marketing brainstorm ends with the same sticky note. What if Clark's out? Expansion is no longer a pipe dream, it's a necessity. Boston, Toronto, Nashville, each city has ownership groups courting the commissioner's office, pointing to packed neutral site games as living proof that demand exists. The league can't drag its feet. While the iron is molten, strike. Add fresh markets. Negotiate broadcasting rights with networks, suddenly throwing elbows for airtime. And, most critically, build the next generation of headliners. Angel Reese, Paige Bueckers, Juju Watkins, and a queue of college phenoms already trend weekly on social. The WNBA must hand them microphones, primetime slots, and storylines. Diversity of star power isn't just nice, it's existential. Fans will still flock to see Clark hit logo threes, but they also need villains, rivals, and partners in primetime crime. Remember, the NBA needed both Magic and Bird, then Jordan, then Kobe and LeBron. One comet blazes bright, a constellation lights the sky forever. Broadcasting renegotiations loom like a jackpot on the horizon. When the current ESPN package expires, streaming giants and legacy networks will wave checkbooks padded by data that didn't exist 2 years ago. The question isn't whether the W will get paid, it's whether they'll lock in deals that secure long-term investment, marketing muscle, and global reach. Caitlin Clark has already proven that women's sports can dominate prime time, crash e-commerce servers, and turn century-old arenas into brand new playgrounds. She shattered myths that gatekeepers clung to for decades and handed the WNBA a spotlight hotter than any in its 28-year history. The league now stands on a ridgeline. On one side, the old narrative of niche appeal. On the other, a future where young girls dribble on driveways, dreaming not just of college scholarships, but of seven-figure pro contracts and sold-out garden parties. The next move belongs to the league's architects. Will they ride the Clark wave into a sustainable ocean of talent, teams, and television deals? Or will they treat this moment like a one-woman show and risk the curtain falling as suddenly as it rose? Basketball's history books remind us that revolutions rarely wait for committees to vote. One thing's undeniable. Every time number 22 laces up, she isn't just chasing wins. She's rewriting the possibilities of an entire sport. And somewhere beyond the arc, another little kid in a driveway is loading up from the logo, believing there's a place for her shot too. So buckle up. Because whether the WNBA builds a dynasty or learns a hard lesson in over-reliance, one truth echoes through every sold-out tunnel in America. Right now, women's basketball runs on Clark time, and the clock is just getting started.